The ashes of Pearl Harbor still smoldered in the American psyche. The surprise attack, a treacherous blow against a nation at peace, had ignited a firestorm of rage across the United States. Declaring war on Japan was a necessary act, but for many, it felt insufficient to quell the burning fury. The American government, reflecting the public's raw emotion, believed a more direct form of retribution was needed. Their target, the very man who had meticulously planned and ruthlessly executed the attack that plunged America into the Second World War. With the invaluable assistance of Japanese Americans, whose loyalty to their adopted homeland never wavered despite the suspicion they faced, the U.S. intelligence community embarked on a highly classified and deeply personal mission, Operation Vengeance. The objective was clear: to track the movements of Japanese Marshal Admiral Yamamoto across the vast expanse of the Pacific Theater, patiently waiting for an opportunity to strike. When, in April 1943, the Magic Code-Breaking Unit, a vital cog in the Allied war machine, intercepted Yamamoto's detailed itinerary, the information reached the highest levels of power. It is said that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt himself, upon learning of Yamamoto's planned travel, issued a simple yet chillingly decisive order: get Yamamoto. Within hours, a squadron of the powerful and distinctive P-38 Lightning fighter aircraft was scrambled their mission: to intercept and eliminate the architect of Pearl Harbor. Isoroku Yamamoto was undeniably one of the most significant and influential leaders within the Japanese Empire. His name is forever linked with the audacious and devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, a preemptive strike against a neutral nation that, in the aftermath of the war, was rightfully judged a war crime during the Tokyo trials. Throughout his distinguished career within the Imperial Japanese Navy, Yamamoto held numerous key positions, steadily rising through the ranks. He is widely recognized as a principal architect of Japan's formidable naval aviation program, a force that initially dominated the Pacific skies. At the outset of the Pacific War, Yamamoto served as a commander-in-chief of the combined fleet, wielding immense power and overseeing several pivotal and hard-fought battles during the early years of World War II. Interestingly, Yamamoto was not merely a highly educated, intelligent, and successful military leader. He also possessed a profound and nuanced understanding of the United States. His time studying at the prestigious Harvard University and his exposure to everyday American life provided him with a unique insight into the country's culture, its industrial might, and its latent military prowess. Perhaps it was this very awareness of America's underlying capabilities that fueled his private reservations about engaging in a protracted military conflict with the United States and its allied partners. He is famously quoted as stating, with a chillingly accurate premonition, "In the first 6 to 12 months of a war with the United States and Great Britain, I will run wild and win victory upon victory. But then, if the war continues after that, I have no expectation of success." One, despite his personal belief that Japan was ultimately on a losing trajectory in the long run, Yamamoto remained fiercely loyal to the Japanese cause, dedicating his considerable talents and energies to serving his country to the best of his ability. For his leadership, his strategic acumen, and his overall performance in service to Japan, he was deeply respected, widely celebrated, and genuinely beloved by the Japanese populace. In stark and understandable contrast, by 1943, Admiral Yamamoto had become one of the most reviled figures in the United States. American civilians and politicians alike viewed him as a treacherous villain, a character who had delivered a devastating stab in the back to America while it was attempting to maintain a posture of neutrality and peace. While this characterization of the Japanese leader as a war criminal was not entirely inaccurate, given his role in planning Pearl Harbor, also lacked a complete understanding of the complex geopolitical realities of the time. The United States was widely expected to eventually lend its full support to the Western European effort against Nazi Germany, a commitment hinted at by its ongoing, albeit passive, interference in the global conflict. That same year, 1943, witnessed a significant turning point in the Pacific War. The United States successfully recaptured Guadalcanal after a protracted and bloody campaign, placing the Japanese forces in a deeply precarious strategic position and prompting Admiral Yamamoto to undertake a tour of naval air units in the region to personally assess the extent of the damage and to bolster the morale of his weary forces. In their operational procedures, the Japanese military often adhered to established routines. On April 13, 1943, in accordance with their standard practice, the Japanese High Command transmitted a coded message to their commands in Guadalcanal. This message contained Admiral Yamamoto's detailed itinerary for his upcoming visit, including specific information regarding his transport aircraft and estimated times of arrival and departure. Unbeknownst to the Japanese, however, the Military Intelligence Service, a crucial branch of the U.S. war effort, had been successfully intercepting and deciphering their communications for years, a testament to the dedication and skill of American codebreakers. A soldier within the MIS, Harold Fidena, has been specifically credited with intercepting this critical radio message. The message was transmitted using a relatively new Japanese naval code, JN-25D. However, the dedicated and often unsung heroes of the code-breaking effort were the Nisei, second-generation Japanese Americans, who played an indispensable role in painstakingly decoding the complex message. These Nisei, employed by the MIS, were frequently involved in the arduous task of extracting vital intelligence from captured Japanese documents and from the interrogation of captured enemy personnel, contributing significantly to the overall effort against Japan. Furthermore, skilled linguists stationed in the strategic locations of Alaska and Hawaii also independently interpreted other intercepted messages that corroborated the accuracy of the information gleaned from Yamamoto's itinerary. Through their meticulous work, the MIS was able to deduce that Admiral Yamamoto would be traveling in a direct route from the Japanese stronghold of Rabaul to the Balele airfield, a distance of approximately 315 miles. This crucial information allowed them to theorize with remarkable accuracy the Admiral's precise location during each minute of his planned flight. For the audacious attack to succeed, it was absolutely essential that the Japanese pilots adhered strictly to their flight plan, with no unexpected delays or deviations in their itinerary. The U.S. commander in the Pacific, the esteemed Admiral Chester Nimitz, after careful consideration of the intelligence and the inherent risks involved, ultimately approved an operation put forth by Major John W. Mitchell, the determined commander of the 339th Fighter Squadron. Major Mitchell's calculations estimated that the Japanese naval leader's aircraft could be intercepted before its scheduled landing at Balele Airfield at precisely 9:35 a.m. A primary consideration for Operation Vengeance was the crucial decision of which type of American aircraft possessed the necessary capabilities to execute the long-range intercept. Certain fighter aircraft in the U.S. arsenal at the time, such as the dependable Grumman F-4F Wildcat, simply did not have a required operational range to reach the target aircraft flying over Bougainville, which was considerable 400 miles away from the American air base located on Guadalcanal. The only American aircraft deemed to possess the necessary combination of range, speed, and firepower for this perilous mission was a Lockheed P-38G Lightning, a distinctive and powerful twin-engine fighter operated by the U.S. Army Air Forces. However, the P-38, while capable, also presented certain challenges that complicated the operation. To avoid early detection by Japanese radar and aircraft stationed throughout the region, the American pilots would need to fly a significant distance, at least 50 miles, away from the shoreline, navigating by the challenging method of dead reckoning at an extremely low altitude of 50 feet or less above the unforgiving ocean surface. Furthermore, the P-38 Lightnings lacked the support of advanced AWACS radar aircraft or reliable land-based radar systems that could guide the pilots directly to their elusive target. Adding significant external guidance without risking detection and potential attack by the substantial Japanese forces stationed in the area was deemed too dangerous. To navigate with the pinpoint precision required for a successful intercept, the Lightnings were specially equipped with highly accurate Navy compasses, a specific request made by Major Mitchell himself, recognizing the limitations of standard Army Air Forces navigation equipment for such a demanding mission. The day of reckoning arrived on April 18, 1943. Major John W. Mitchell, the determined commander of the 339th Fighter Squadron, personally led the charge into skies. A total of 18 P-38 Lightning aircraft were carefully selected for the mission, each armed with their standard formidable armament of a 20mm cannon and 4.50 caliber machine guns. To ensure they could complete the extremely long-range flight, the Lightnings were also fitted with jettisonable external drop tanks, significantly increasing their fuel capacity. Of the 18 planes chosen for the mission, 4 were specifically designated as the killer flight, tasked with directly attacking Yamamoto's aircraft, while the remaining 14 climbed to a higher altitude to form protective cover against any Japanese escorting fighter planes that might intervene. The pilots involved in this top-secret operation were briefed with deliberately incomplete information. They were told that their target was a high-ranking Japanese officer who had been spotted by a Coast Watcher, a network of Allied observers stationed on remote islands. They were not informed of the specific identity of their target, Admiral Yamamoto himself, nor were they made aware of the extensive involvement of the Military Intelligence Service in locating him. However, this official account of the briefing has been partially contradicted by at least one witness who claimed that Major Mitchell, recognizing the gravity of the mission, did reveal that Yamamoto was a target in order to further motivate the already dedicated pilots. At precisely 7 a.m. that fateful morning, only 16 of the intended 18 P-38s roared down the runway and into the sky. 2 of the pilots assigned to critical killer flight experienced last-minute mechanical issues with their aircraft, one due to a flat tire and the other to a malfunctioning fuel feed, forcing them to remain grounded. Thus, the crucial task of carrying out the kill fell to the remaining 2 pilots of the designated strike force, Captain Thomas G. Lanphier and Lieutenant Rex T. Barber. They embarked on an incredibly demanding 400-mile flight at an extremely low altitude, maintaining complete radio silence to avoid detection, with an acknowledged low probability of success. This fighter intercept mission required the longest distance flight of the entire Second World War, a testament to the dedication and the risks undertaken by these pilots. After meticulously calculating the prevailing wind speed, the anticipated flight path, and the estimated speed of the Japanese G-4M Betty bomber carrying Admiral Yamamoto, the American team projected their intercept would occur at precisely 9:35 a.m. Incredibly, the U.S. team arrived at their designated interception point 1 minute earlier than their calculated time, at 9:34 a.m. Their intelligence proved to be remarkably accurate when, just 1 minute later, the anticipated Japanese aircraft appeared on the horizon. 2 Mitsubishi G-4M Type 1 Betty bombers, one of which carried Admiral Yamamoto, came into the view of the low-flying Lightning planes at an altitude of approximately 4,500 feet. They were escorted by 6 Agile A-6M0 fighter planes flying at a slightly higher altitude of 5,500 feet. 12 of the American P-38s immediately climbed rapidly to an altitude of 18,000 feet, remaining undetected by the Japanese fighters, while the remaining 4 Lightnings, the designated killer flight, initiated their attack on the unsuspecting Japanese bombers. The Japanese bombers, caught completely by surprise, immediately dove sharply in a desperate attempt to evade the sudden attack. Captain Lanphier and Lieutenant Barber, their adrenaline surging, pursued the diving bombers without knowing for certain which of the 2 aircraft carried their high-value target. According to reports, Lieutenant Barber skillfully targeted one of the Betty bombers, successfully damaging its right engine. The crippled aircraft, losing control, plunged straight into the dense jungle canopy below. The other Betty bomber was reportedly engaged and forced to crash land into the sea by Lieutenant Besby Holmes, another pilot in the killer flight. Deep within the tangled jungle, the mission was complete. The body of Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, lay amidst the wreckage of his aircraft, his katana, his ceremonial sword, still clutched in his hand. The following morning, a recovery team reached the crash site. It was determined that Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto had died before the aircraft even impacted the ground. His cremated remains were later transported back to Tokyo with full military honors aboard the Japanese battleship Ijin Musashi. In the aftermath of Yamamoto's death, Minaichi Koga stepped in as the new commander-in-chief of the combined fleet, but he was soon replaced by Soma Toyota. Neither of these successors possessed the same level of strategic vision and command effectiveness that Yamamoto had demonstrated. On a strategic level, Operation Vengeance was a significant victory for the United States. Yamamoto's planned visit to Guadalcanal, which the Japanese High Command had hoped would boost the morale of their beleaguered forces, instead became a devastating blow to Japanese morale. The death of their revered admiral was kept a closely guarded secret from the Japanese public for nearly a month. In Japan, the aerial battle would be euphemistically referred to as the Navy KO incident, Admiral Magaki, who had miraculously survived the ocean crash of the other Betty bomber accompanying Yamamoto's plane, eventually recovered and went on to direct some of the largest and most desperate kamikaze attacks against the U.S. Navy in the final, desperate stages of the Pacific War. When Japan finally surrendered in 1945, Admiral Agaki reportedly boarded a Yokosuka D-4 wide-duty dive bomber with the stated intention of never returning, a final, defiant act. Two of his subordinates boarded the plane with him in a futile attempt to dissuade him. None of them were ever seen again, and no conclusive U.S. records have ever been linked to his mysterious disappearance. For the United States, the successful execution of Operation Vengeance represented a significant point of pride and a morale-boosting victory in the larger context of the Pacific conflict. To protect the vital secret that they had successfully deciphered the Japanese codes, all American newspapers and broadcasters were instructed to disseminate the fabricated story that had been used to initially brief the squadron. That coast watchers had simply spotted Yamamoto boarding his bomber in the Solomon Islands. This carefully constructed cover story allowed the American military to claim the kill was a matter of luck and skillful piloting, rather than the direct result of their intelligence breakthroughs. The Japanese, perhaps unwilling to believe their sophisticated ciphers had been compromised, readily accepted this version of events and failed to realize the extent to which their communication security had been breached. Despite the mission's undeniable success, controversy surrounded the incident for many years. The pilots involved were not thoroughly debriefed immediately after the mission, and conflicting accounts emerged regarding who had actually shot down Yamamoto's aircraft. Captain Thomas Lanphier and Lieutenant Rex Barber both claimed credit for the kill, and ultimately, they were each officially credited with half a kill. This division of credit remained a point of contention for decades, with Lieutenant Barber formally petitioning to have his credit adjusted to a full kill. However, in 1991, the Air Force History Office concluded that sufficient uncertainty remained in the historical record, and both Captain Lanphier's and Lieutenant Barber's claims would continue to be accepted. Adding to the complexity, a close friend of both officers later claimed that Captain Lanphier had been instrumental in composing the official mission report, the medal citations, and several articles about the mission that were published in magazines in the years following the war. Furthermore, it has been alleged that while Lieutenant Barber had initially been willing to share the credit, Captain Lanphier later wrote a manuscript for a memoir in which he claimed full credit for shooting down Admiral Yamamoto's aircraft. Although this book was never officially published, Captain Lanphier reportedly continued to assert his sole credit throughout his life, a claim that Lieutenant Rex Barber continued to strongly and publicly contest until his own passing, leaving a lingering shadow of controversy over one of the Pacific War's most celebrated and consequential missions.